Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. Dear friends, the theme for tonight's talk is the awakening factor of Samadhi, which is the essence of meditation. So I think we better jump directly into meditation, and then we can talk a bit about it afterwards. A short meditation like this, a person may not be able to go all the way into a full jhanic concentration. But if you would just notice during this next period, whether you can have a relaxed, focused mind, a sense of peace, ease, and tranquility, and whether there is happiness, spiritual, pleasant feeling, joy, happiness, rapture. And if you are approaching any part of that, you can note that as being a sign of going in the right direction. But if in trying to do meditation, the mind is persistently restless, distractible, and not able to come to that calmness, then you will have to practice mindfulness. So it's not a bad thing. No meditation is ever wasted. If the hindrances will give you a break for just this section and let you go to the calm, still, and tranquil mind, settled on a meditation object, that's beautiful. And if the hindrances are still a factor, then we must, with compassion and a certain amount of detachment, just notice what's happening and keep coming back again and again to the meditation object. So having said all that, I welcome you to come to an upright and balanced meditation posture, establishing the body on the chair or the cushion. Bringing a certain amount of energy to an upright torso. In other words, you're not slouching over or falling asleep. You can feel, because the body is upright, the tailbone is like turned just a little bit and put some like a lift into the body. And then if you take a long breath, you can feel that the breath is able to flow very easy. The breath is not being crushed. Arrange the hands and the legs in a way that's as stable as possible. And minimize pain in sitting. Making a decision to the best of your ability to let go of thinking about what happened earlier today or what you're hoping for tomorrow. Just for this few minutes to be in the present moment. Making a note at the beginning of how it feels right now. What's the feeling tone? What's the state of mind? Making a survey of the body and any place that tension or tightness is held in the body. Think of releasing and relaxing that. From the top of the head, the face, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the front of the body, the upper legs, the knees, the lower legs, ankles, feet, feet, ankles, lower legs, knees, upper legs, seat, the lower back, the middle back, the upper back, the back of the head, the top of the head, holding the entire body in awareness. And relaxing any points of tension or tightness or agitation, letting the body be calm and still, and relaxed. And if the breath is noticeable, aware of breath, around the nostrils or the upper lip, or wherever the breath can be noticed. Allowing the breath in that one place to fill the awareness. Everything else can go to the background. Just aware of breath. If you can just rest awareness on the breath. Or if the mind is too restless or for some reason not staying on the breath, then keep returning to the breath again and again. Or if you are losing the meditation and cannot connect to the breath, then do the scanning of the body, relaxing and calming the body from head to toes and from toes to head. And when the body is relaxed, returning to the breath. So, dear friends, the Bojjhanga factor, or the awakening factor of Samadhi, is the sixth of the seven factors. As a Bojjhanga, or as an awakening factor, it's related to calmness, calming, and it is balanced out by the factor of virya, effort or energy. In another one of the important Buddhist lists, the list of the 5 faculties, there is also a very clear expression of this balancing between virya, or energy, and samadhi, or calmness. So one would not wish to be lowering the level of the practice to balance them, but instead thinking of raising the level. So when there's a lot of energy present in the mind, think of increasing the samadhi to be strong enough to balance and hold that energy. Or if the feeling when we come into the meditation is very calm, quiet, and stable, think of bringing enough energy to protect the calmness, so the calmness doesn't slip off into dullness or into a low energy kind of a state of sloth and torpor or a boredom. It's a mistake to think of samadhi as concentration, where the mind is tightly gripping onto an object of meditation and trying to use a lot of force to cause the mind to stay on its meditation subject. Instead, the samadhi is arising from everything that's come before it in the practice. And as something that's an emerging quality, it's this quality of the stillness of mind, the stability, non-wavering, not moving. It doesn't mean that the awareness is narrowed down to a point. Instead, the awareness is expansive. It's just that the awareness is not flickering and trembling and shaking and jumping about, but instead has that quality of stability. You could take an analogy with the mind of a Brahma god. He can survey thousands of world systems as easily as a person can view a handful of sesame seeds. So in that, the 4 jhanas are sometimes compared with the Brahma realm, with the divine realm. That's why the divine abidings meditation is a kind of jhana meditation. And so it's got that expansive, big sky, godly quality of being able to oversee everything. One of the path factors in samadhi, sama samadhi, or right samadhi, is what's called ekagata, which is sometimes wrongly translated as one-pointedness. So we do speak sometimes of having the awareness changing its focus to being a narrow focus or a wider focus. So an example of a narrow spotlight would be just attending to the sensation of breath at one point in the body where the breath is noticeable. And then the field of awareness could be expanded and opened up to include the entire body and all of the sensations or whatever that could be experienced in the entire body. Or the field of awareness could be expanded even further to allow whatever is coming in by way of the five senses, so that the limitation of the focus is that in that case, it's in the present moment and it's in the body together with its five sense faculties, the five physical senses, or else the focus, the way the spotlight is expanded or contracted, it could be expanded to also include the state of mind, the mental factors. But it's not what we see for a person who's has the presence of any of hindrances. If the mind is tending to be unstable or jumping about or distractible, then the wider, more general focus can be almost counterproductive in meditation. That, like, if you are opened yourself up to being aware of anything that's coming in through any of the five physical senses, it's like you could have the sense of being bombarded with millions of points of contact coming on, and for some people that can be even unpleasant or a little bit destabilizing. But taking the narrower focus, just focusing on, for example, the breath at one place in the body, that is because it's simple, it's much easier to come to stillness with an object like that. Nevertheless, it is said by some teachers, I'm quoting in this case Ajahn Punadhamma, who's a pretty good teacher. He feels that it's a mistake to think of putting the mind on the object and attaching the mind to the object, but rather more useful to think of opening the mind to the object and allowing the meditation object to fill the mind. So that's just a different kind of a way of thinking about it. When I was preparing to speak with you tonight, I realized that among the great contemporary meditation teachers, there's several different schools of thought about what Samadhi is, or what jhana meditation is. And I certainly do not feel either competent or capable in a short time to present the debates among the different teachers about the different aspects of what jhana is or what samadhi is. But I would like to point you to the basic definition given in the sutta, which is something that is really excellent to learn, so that you would be able to, if a bit of that tranquility, that clarity, that brightness comes up for you, that you'll be able to situate yourself with what's going on in the meditation, to recognize the factors that are part of meditation. So in the sutta, the meditator is withdrawn from sensual desire, from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities. That means that the hindrances are not present. So one has been doing whatever reflection, effort, and practice to come to, in a compassionate way, to understand the hindrances that we typically experience, and to be able to find a way to release, let them go, and put them down. So that's the greed and aversion, the restlessness, the sloth and torpor, and the doubt. If you are attempting meditation and you choose an object of meditation, whether it's the breath or loving kindness or awareness of the body, whatever the practice is, and you're not able to stick with this practice because the mind is carried away with thinking, then you just need to acknowledge the presence of hindrances and do what's necessary to take care of them. When the hindrances are away, temporarily abandoned, when you have that seclusion, then there is a wonderful happiness and pleasure associated with that seclusion from the hindrances. That's the second factor. This is accompanied by applied thought and sustained thought. Could be translated as directed thought and evaluation. This is the first jhana, and so at this stage, the meditation procedure is still prominent, but that meditation is very enjoyable, and it's an important feature because the mind goes to sensual pleasure, hatred, sleepiness, agitation, because there's something in us that wants these other states, because somehow for a mistaken reason, there's something in us that thinks that these states are a place where our happiness lies. But if we can find the happiness of being secluded from those states, then you've got this wonderful freedom that you no longer have the necessity of being pulled around like a puppet by those states of mind. So it's a tremendous power that comes with the first jhana. Then the second jhana has the characteristic of the stilling of thought, of applied thought and sustained thought, and a feature of this composure, this samadhi. So samadhi itself is a feature of the second jhana, that is the stillness and the calmness, and that stillness itself has its own quality of being very pleasurable. This is what's called the Niramisa Vedana, or the non-carnal pleasures, or the spiritual pleasures. This jhana has the quality of the unification of the mind, and a quality of internal assurance. Then in the third jhana, the piti rapture, that emotional state, is fading away, and equanimity begins to become more and more prominent. One dwells in equanimity with mindful and alert. So then sati is samasati is the seventh point on the Eightfold Noble Path. Samadhi is the eighth point on the Noble Eightfold Path, but right samadhi contains mindfulness. So mindfulness and clear comprehension with this equanimity, this even mindfulness. And so then it's described in the metaphor as looking into a clear pool of water where one is standing above the water looking down, and you can see all the little colored pebbles and the shells and the fishes and the little plants and the things in the water can be seen with this crystal clarity. So that's the quality of mindfulness and clear comprehension that happens in the third jhana. There is a bodily pleasure. It says in the sutta, says sampajano kayena patisangvedi. So with the body, you experience the sampajano. So you're experiencing that. This is the third jhana. And then the fourth jhana is very, it's got this quality of coolness with the abandoning of the bodily pleasure, abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the disappearance of psychological elation and distress. This would have happened earlier on. So the fourth jhana has got a strong neutral tone, characterized by a kind of a perfection of equanimity, and with that, the perfection of sati. So there's a purification of equanimity and mindfulness together. And then and that's accompanied by neutral feeling or neutral Vedana. I'm going to use my minutes to point you to another sutta that gives a little bit different way of looking at it. This sutta is called the Samadhi Bhavana Sutta. I'm going to put it in the chat so that if you like to, you can look it up later. Chat. There it is. Samadhi Bhavana Sutta, number 4.41 in the Anguttara Nikaya. It's in the four, so it's going to give four things. The fourth and the first one that's given in this sutta is if you're looking for a pleasant abiding here and now, and for the sake of pleasant abiding, it is recommending, and then it has exactly the same standard formula of the jhana. So this first point in this sutta is emphasizing we could say the spiritual pleasure factor of samadhi meditation. Being able to find joy in meditation, if you have that ability, if you've discovered that and learned it, you know how much courage and freedom that gives you in relationship to all the other experiences of life, because you know that there is this possibility that you have within you that's not depending on anything external, which has got that deep quality of happiness, and which is safe and free from the dangers of greedy attachment, or from being an addiction or something like that. So that's the first point that's given in the Samadhi Bhavana Sutta. Then the second is referring to the development of concentration that, when developed and pursued, leads to the attainment of knowledge and vision. And in this case, it's referring to where the monk attends to the perception of light, is resolved on the perception of light at any hour of the day. Day is the same as night, night the same as day. And this is described as leading to knowledge and vision. Now, in this case, because this sutta is given in the numerical discourses, which is a little bit later than other suttas, and because this particular format is not something that I see in a lot of different places, my idea about this paragraph, or this point in the sutta, is it's pointing out what's called the nimitta, or the sign of concentration, which is very much emphasized in the commentary, emphasized by some literature, emphasized by some teachers, that one can have an experience of light, which is not a physical light perceived by the eye, but a purely mental object known by the mind. Ajahn Brahm Paoksayadaw teach that this beautiful experience of light is something that's to be expected in doing samadhi meditation. And if that comes up for you, then you can feel that you're going in the right direction. Don't give up your objective meditation and start to become fascinated by the light. Instead, it's more like a side effect, and continue as long as you can to stay on your objective meditation. And then subsequently, it can happen that the mind goes to a kind of a stillness where, like the physical breath, for example, is not noticeable, but the the nimitta of is noticeable. Other teachers, notably Ayakema Lee Brazington, feel that this is a corrupted interpretation of the suttas, that it's a distraction, and that if you are pursuing this nimitta of light and feeling that your meditation is no good if you're not getting lights, that, or if you are seeing lights and feeling that this is the purpose of the meditation, that it can lead you in a wrong direction. I'll just say that here we have, it's in a sutta. It's about the perception of light as an aspect of concentration, and it's given right here in the Samadhi Bhavana Sutta. So you do see it once in a while, but it's not emphasized as the basic formula for Sama Samadhi. The basic formula is related to the seclusion from unwholesome states of mind, the happiness and bliss that comes from seclusion, and then having progressive states of calmness, unification of the mind, clarity, and brilliance of the mindfulness. And so you should give a priority to those qualities as being the signpost of samadhi. Then in this Samadhi Bhavana Sutta, the third option that's given is saying, what's the development of concentration that leads to sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension? And says, in this case, the four of the five aggregates are known: the feelings, perceptions, volitional formations. I'm sorry, it's three of the aggregates are pointed out: feeling, thoughts, feeling, perception, and thoughts, and seeing the impermanence in those phenomena. So seeing feeling as it arises, as it persists, and as it subsides. Seeing a thought as it arises, as it persists, as it subsides. Seeing a perception as it arises, as it persists, as it subsides. And so without becoming intellectual or conceptual or engaging in labeling or in any kind of like a discursive thought activity, within the basic method of meditation, it could happen in samadhi that this it arises that one can see impermanence. And in the sutta, it's suggesting that just watching the impermanence is a good practice and can be a kind of concentration. Then the fourth development of concentration that's pointed out is the one that leads to the ending of the taints, or the ending of the asavas. That would be the development of concentration that's leading to nibbana, that's leading to full awakening, full enlightenment. And in this case, one sees the arising and falling away of the five clinging aggregates. So this is the form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. In short, it's everything that a person could identify with as being the self. And again, without being conceptual, without engaging in discursive thinking, it would be possible to directly, within Samadhi, directly to notice these phenomena and to see such is form, such is the origination of form, such is the passing away or the cessation of form. So this is still, it's looking at a slightly different set of objects, at the five aggregates, and it's looking at them in terms of causation. So the formula of dukkha is of causation. There is dukkha, there is suffering. There is the arising of dukkha, which is because of dukkha arises because of clinging. There's the cessation of dukkha, that with the cessation of clinging comes the cessation of dukkha. And so this formula, this samadhi meditation, is saying that one could directly experience that within samadhi. And so that would be having that perfection or that purification of mindfulness and clear comprehension in our state of mind, which is got that perfect equanimity. That without falling out of meditation and falling into intellectual thinking, that one would directly see and know these phenomena. And this would be the kind of samadhi which is taking you right up to the destruction of the taints, which is another way of expressing the goal of our practice, the reason why we're doing this practice. So let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to say. The hindrances have the characteristic both of making it difficult to stay settled on the meditation. So the hindrances themselves, all of them are involved with restlessness because they are kind of like making it difficult to rest. And then the hindrances have the second characteristic of blocking wisdom. So it's kind of like a dust storm or a cloud or a darkness or something that is blocking being able to see clearly. And so then the absence or freedom, the escape from the hindrances, means both that it's possible to come to that stillness, to come to rest, and it's also possible to see clearly. So that's a reason why one should not think that the five hindrances is just a teaching for beginners, that it's just some kind of a simple teaching, and one should not become so blasé about the hindrances that we've been practicing for a long time, and the hindrances are still a factor. We still have greed, we still have aversion, we still have restlessness and so forth. Instead, we should feel the urgency, the importance, and the significance of finding out how to abandon the hindrances, which is part and parcel of the entrance to samadhi, is this abandoning of the hindrances. And doing that is not just for the sake of taking a vacation or having a pleasant abiding. It is also for the sake of wisdom. My teacher, Bhante Gunaratana, loved to frequently say in Pali, Natijanang apanyasa panyanati ajayato yam hijanan chapanyacha Sive Nibbana Santike. There's no jhana for one with no wisdom for one with no jhana, but one who has both jhana and wisdom, he's on the verge of enlightenment. He's close to Nibbana. Now, I welcome your comments and questions, and for those who have had some success in doing Samadhi meditation, for the benefit of those who perhaps have not yet really gained clear experiences with Samadhi, if you were happy to say anything about how you got there and how it works for you, that would be quite useful, or whatever questions you have. Those who are in the room are also welcome to ask a question or give a comment. Okay, I have a question from Mita Kamsi. I'm going to turn the camera so we can see you. Mita Kanti took Anagarika precepts yesterday. And so she's white.
Hello. Thank you, Aya. I was thinking about the debates around jhana. They can be confusing to like self-evaluate. But there is one sutta where the Buddha says that after attaining the jhanas or something higher, one should not be tempted by sensual pleasures. So that's like a criterion for evaluating your own meditation. Because I know I've had meditation where I thought, oh, this is really profound. And then 5 minutes later, I'm thinking about, spaghetti or pizza. And then I think, wait, oh, maybe it's not so profound anyway. So I thought that could be sort of a standard for those who don't have access to a teacher, maybe. Anyway.
So to my understanding, if we, according to the suttas, when one has experienced the piti and sukha of jhana, that one would be at least temporarily protected from sensual desire. And then even if after emerging from jhana, one experiences desire, you would be very disenchanted with desire. You say, well, this is just hunger, it's just a taste. It doesn't have the same kind of a grip on the psychology that it would have otherwise. So you should expect that when you get keep practicing and see whether the pool of sensual desire starts to fade away and become a non-factor in your life. Yeah. Richard.
Thank you, Ed. That second section, and what is the development of concentration that leads to obtaining knowledge and vision?
Yes.
it's interesting that the Buddha then goes on to talk about perception of light, day and night, to the point that it's imbued, when the mind is open and uncovered, he develops a state of mind. This is a bad translation. The first mind is cetasa. That's kind of like, a good mind, one's good mind that is open and uncovered, and he develops. The next one is a chittam, one's own state of mind imbued with luminosity. So it's kind of interesting that there's this idea that if you light candles and stuff like that, that you'll have like more intelligence in the future. They do like the Festival of Lights and things like that in Buddhist countries, where they light a bunch of, sometimes I think they float in the air, and sometimes they just put them on a river or something. So there seems to be this connection between light and this idea here of obtaining knowledge and vision, because the mind is self-luminous when it's uncovered. So I was wondering if you knew anything more about that.
Well, I think it's a metaphor. I think it's a metaphor for a luminosity of the mind. I think it's actually, I think that this sutra is a little bit confused, and I a little bit question whether the way that particular passage is put together is an essential teaching, or if it's something that from a metaphor of the luminosity of the mind and a phenomenon of sometimes experiencing light during meditation, and the pun about knowledge and vision. So the vision is seeing, and so that you can see when there's light. And those things it feels to me in a way like those things got jammed together to create that second paragraph. But it is true that there is the quality of, the luminous mind, which is not corrupted by adventitious defilements. So this purity, this luminosity, it's a very vivid metaphor for something that can be experienced. That's as far as I can go with that, and I could be wrong. So I didn't have the opportunity to look very closely and find out whether I could find any authority figures to back up my intuition about this particular paragraph.
Yes, and also I think there's references in other suttas where in the fourth jhana, you might see like light, right?
Right.
So I think it's connected with that. And then in the third section, it says he knows feelings as they arise, etc. He knows perception as they arise, etc. And he knows thoughts, right? But I think it's important when thinking in terms of the third section that you keep in mind that here he's talking about samadhi, because there are physical, right, sensations and physical perceptions. But I think here he's specifically talking about mana's ability to have sensation and perception. But mana has the quality as well, in the brain, right? Thoughts are produced. So one gets so still in mind, you might say, right, and aware, mindfulness, that you can see the sensations of the mind itself appearing. You can see the perceptions, kind of like how they well up, you might say, right? And in the same way, you can see how thoughts well up, because some of our thoughts don't appear to be self-induced. Like sometimes if a person gets very upset about something, it can take hold of them and they can get to the point where they can't stop thinking about it. Even if they're tired of it and it's hurting and it's painful, they don't want to think about it. The thoughts just keep coming. So I think it's important, when looking at this, to keep in mind that here, particularly, we're talking about, in a state of samadhi, right? And that this is, you're seeing what's, very clearly what's going on in the mana. But like you were saying before, you're looking at a clear lake and you're seeing all the little things, going on in there, right? The different parts and the animals and stuff like that. Anyways, that was the only points that I
Yes.
wanted to make in questions that I had. Thank you.
You've pointed out that, samadhi is not like just turning on a light bulb. It's not just turn a switch and it's on, but instead it's a living thing because we're alive. And so because of that living quality, it's got like this subtle motion. And so then the experience of the impermanence of phenomenon arising and subsiding is the result of being within a lived experience. And since you mentioned lights, I'm just going to need to share very briefly what we did last night at our temple. We all gathered together. We had 15 people in the house yesterday, and we recited the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta because yesterday was Anatta Lakkhana Day, and we lit candles and experienced light. So I'm just sharing that because it happens to fit the metaphor. Now I'll call on Ren.
Thank you, Aya. I heard the word wisdom, knowledge, vision that's related to description of advanced state of samadhi and different state of samadhi. Conceptually, I understand that. And I don't know how to envision the ability to encompass large sphere of objects or territory, as well as seeing all the minute detail. The ability to do that, does that have any, does our intellect or rationality have any function at all at that point? It doesn't seem to be that way because, to get to the samadhi, we do concentration, meditation that focus on object, not focus on thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I don't know how to envision that state without, how do I know something? How do I have wisdom, be able to see and grasp large quantity of information, or maybe information is not the right word, without conceptually comprehending it? And the second part to the question is there any kind of meditation tradition where the object of meditation is certain kind of purity of idea and you follow a certain idea as concentration, or that does that exist at all?
As far as the this direct knowing, this direct wisdom, as opposed to something more, I'll call it intellectual, it can be like some experiences that we have in order to unravel the mystery or the knot of like why we're suffering, for example. There can be like an analytical process of, like, it's almost in retrospect, chopping it up in little pieces. So then that's a type of an analytical meditation. So like you take the body and you think of the head hairs, the body hairs, the nails, teeth, skin, you think of all the different parts of the body. And so you're like, as a contemplation, you're taking it and breaking it up into pieces. I think that's not really what's referred to in Samadhi. Samadhi is more like the mind is so fast that all of the small steps of the process of the mind can emerge with clarity because I don't know if it's because time is slowed up or comprehension is speeded up, that one is able to comprehend many elements directly. That's just, and again, I'm not necessarily an authority figure, but that's my impression. So we're all intellectual people, we're smart people, and we can use our wonderful minds to analyze things and to solve problems and to develop, even to cultivate right view, to cultivate the wholesome perceptions that are suggested as possibilities within meditation. So even like, say, the perception of impermanence, if you've heard a teacher say that all things are impermanent, and you're thinking, is this true or not? You could like intentionally look at different phenomenon and examine them and say, well, is it permanent or is it impermanent? So you're doing your own like science experiment to find out whether or not everything's impermanent. And so that's kind of like, it's a good positive quality that we've got minds that are able to investigate like that. But what's happening in Samadhi is much, it's a different kind of a energy, and it's more, there is this much more this quality of stillness and clarity together. So don't give up your good mind that's able to be active and investigating. But when you're doing meditation, don't try to be active and investigating like that. Instead, just try to relax, be calm, be still, stay on a simple object, and allow that way of direct knowing or direct wisdom to emerge for you. That's my suggestion.
So when the mind is agile and clear and still at that state, how is that seen on a day-to-day level? I mean, how does it impact daily life, manifestation of daily life? I mean, does it?
Well, it could manifest as the taint of sensuality becomes completely destroyed. The taint of existence is destroyed, and the taint of ignorance is destroyed, and one becomes a fully enlightened arahant. That would be a manifestation of this process. And then when you're partway there, you could find that when you emerge, that whatever tendencies that you had to really suffer because of sensual greed, because of clinging to existence, or because of deluded thinking, you'll see that those painful experiences have started to clear up, started to become less prominent, less dominating as it comes to more clearness.
Thank you, Aya.
Yeah. Okay. I'll come back to Richard one more time, and I think you will have the last comment.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing in that section 2. It says here a bhikkhu attends. This is a Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Here a bhikkhu attends to the perception of light. But if you look at the Pali, what he's translating as attends is manasi karoti. So that's like yoniso manasi kara. It's
Yeah.
basically the same thing. Okay. So that total, focus of mind, right? And the other thing I forgot, you asked about experiences. And so this is going to be a little bit off in terms of, I don't think it's necessary to do this type of hard practice. I started out as a Zen Buddhist. And when I went, after 5 years of studying it, I went to a 1-week retreat. And as I was sitting in meditation in that retreat after a few days, and I was really focusing on what they call a koan. A koan is like a legal case record. So it means that somebody became enlightened or something in a certain particular way. So they ask you, how did that happen? It's kind of like, you're trying to, well, how did, just because this teacher said this to this disciple, right? Or did a certain action or something. Like there's a famous one where the disciple brings the teacher a light and a candle in the darkness in the night. And as he's giving it over to the teacher suddenly blows it out. And then the disciple gets an insight, So you're giving things, koans are like that. Well, why? How did he become enlightened just by that? Okay. So anyways, I was focusing very intently on this koan because I came to understand that that's the actual practice, to just keep it in mind constantly all the time. So even at night when I was asleep, I wasn't really unconscious. I was actually conscious, and I was focusing on this koan, and it's like I was in a blackness, you might say, focusing on this koan. So finally, after a couple of days like this, one time when I was sitting there, I started to hear this humming sound. And I'm in a retreat a mile high in the middle of a forest. There's really no sound around or anything. It's just, quiet place. And I started hearing this humming sound. It got louder and louder and louder and louder until, I don't know if you've ever seen films of like a large power generation plant, like Hoover Dam, where they go inside and the giant magnets are spinning around with the force of the water, and they're making this tremendously loud humming sound, and I could hear that type of sound. And I would say that that's kind of like, casina, right? A sign. And so it's not so much a meditation object per se. It's kind of like you were inferring before. A casina is kind of like a signpost along the way. It means you're making some progress. And so there's these various casinas, and as you become aware of them, it means, okay, it's like going on a journey. Okay, here's the marker, another 100 miles to so-and-so. Okay, I've made some progress. Oh, now it's 80 miles there, right? So I didn't get distracted by it, but I just remembered it as an experience, that intense meditation, would lead one into like states like that, which had nothing to do with the physical realm at all. There was no sound like that going on around or anything like that. There's just some sort of a sound that I became aware of, within my own mind or a different plane or something like that. Anyways, I just thought that might be interesting. But I'm not advocating someone go and practice or study Zen. That practice was very, very, for me, what I did, very intense, very difficult, a lot of suffering involved. And later on in studying Theravada, where Buddha says, this teaching is, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. I don't believe you're supposed to be suffering a lot to be to follow Buddhism or to be a monastic or anything like that. If you are experiencing a lot of suffering or difficulty or mental problems and stuff, it means somehow or another you're not looking clearly at what the Buddha taught. You know, you're not understanding the simplicity of it, you know, and you're getting more caught up into side trips or some other mental problem. I'm not saying that as a criticism. You know, you need to understand that's what's going on, because it should be good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing. There's a lot of diversity in what we can experience with meditation, but then there's a lot of fundamental simplicity, and that's why it's good when we have read the sutras and have got an outline of which where we're focusing, and then we know how to pay attention to what's most significant, most important. So with that, I will invite. Okay, yes. Okay, Maureen.
Yes. Can I ask you, what was the first sutta that you were talking about? Because I missed getting that down, that you were referring to in your talk.
The first, okay, so the basic description of the definition of Samadhi appears in many different sutras. The one I was reading was in the Samyutta Nikaya 45.8, but there are also many other sutras. I guess the one that would be the most let me see. No, that's not. Oh, that's really interesting. Well, this one is as good as any. It's called the Vibhanga Sutta, or the analysis, and it's in the Connected Discourses, and it's an analysis of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is in a Connected Discourses, chapter 45, number 8. So 45.8. Vibhanga Sutta. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your patient listening and for your wonderful questions, for the sincerity of your practice. And I hope that all of us can be successful. Let's give respect to the Triple Gem. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teachings so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. There was so much material.